So, are you interested in seeing Brazil's new sport? I think it'll be ready for the Summer Olympics in 2016, but if you want to get a sneak peek, I'll show you. Hey everyone, welcome back to AMTV. I'm Topher Morrison, and this is your full spectrum news blitz. Our first story today in history. It's a dirty, dirty word in the United States. Secession. Oh yes, don't you dare say it, especially if you're a white Southerner. But for some reason, it's really popular in Ireland, Scotland, Spain, and Italy, and it was huge circa 1990 in the Soviet Union, but again, bad news bears if you're an American. Well, now it's a popular item in Yemen. That's right, Yemen. In 1990, the country united, only to be engulfed in civil war 4 years later. According to the AFP, quote, thousands of people rallied in South Yemen on Sunday's 19th anniversary of the civil war that was won by the North to demand secession for the South. The secessionists chanted, "No union, no federation, no to the occupation." Don't you know, it's always so nice, like a little rhythm. Anyway, they want international arbitration to broker the breakup. While the whole world is tying itself together amidst free trade agreements, economic and political unions, Yemen is joining a growing number of small states around the world in a small state revolution of sorts, seeking home rule versus distant autocracy. Isn't it interesting how when you remove the racism and the slavery thing from the secession debate, kind of takes on a whole different feel, you know? Not so racist, not so redneck. I don't know. And in geopolitical news, Egypt. Don't you dare call it a coup. Over the weekend, there was a whole lot of debate over what to call Egypt's bloody little transition. On Wikipedia, for all places. Was it merely popular nullification of an election, which placed Mohamed Morsi as leader after its previous strongman Hosni Mubarak was similarly removed from power, or was it a military coup d'etat? Under the law, the last definition would stop U.S. taxpayer dollars at Cairo's doorstep. Surprisingly, Senator John McCain, a Republican of Arizona, our dear senator, generally an advocate of funding radical insurgents in Libya and Syria, somehow feigned restraint with your hard-earned money this weekend, and did it all with a straight face.
On CBS's Face the Nation, Arizona Republican Senator John McCain said it was time for the U.S. to take a stand.
The United States should not be supporting this coup.
McCain argued the U.S. should reassess the $1.5 billion it gives to Egypt each year.
Reluctantly, I believe that we have to suspend aid until such time as there is a new constitution and a free and fair election.
U.S. law requires Washington to cut off aid to any nation whose military ousts a democratically elected leader. So Egypt's ambassador to the U.S. argued today that's not what this was.
Egypt has not undergone a military coup, and it is certainly not run by the military.
As it turns out, upon a little more investigation, the United States not only outfits Egypt with military hardware the same way Nike outfits a football team with jerseys, but it trained the man behind the recent coup. That's right, General Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is his name. He was trained at America's elite military program, the U.S. Army War College in Pennsylvania. According to its commandant, General Tony Cucolo, one aspect of the International Fellows Program, which started in the early 1970s, is that former students, now embedded in their home country, have the ability to call back to American overlords, colleagues, it's all semantics, right, for advice and guidance, quote unquote, in crises. Representative Mike Rogers seems to get it. He voices no objection to America's persistent involvement abroad. Military juntas are a good thing, according to this American.
Republican Mike Rogers, who chairs the House Intelligence Committee, said Egypt's military needs that aid, whether you define this week's ouster as a coup or not.
We should continue to support the military, the one stabilizing force in Egypt that I think can temper down the political feuding that you're seeing going on now.
But it's a sad day in Egypt. It always has been, or it has been in recent history. The Egyptian military is 40% of the Egyptian economy. They are the largest land and business owners in Egypt. We train their top brass. Perhaps this is why John McCain advocates halting funding. After 2 overthrows, we have what we paid for, right? Instability. And by pulling away the carrot now, any prospective leader will have to kneel before Washington. to get it back. And in dispatches from the drug war, what do drugs and sterilization, forced sterilization, have in common? The following clip is Liberty maven and Nobel Prize-winning economist Milton Friedman, the man who advised Ronald Reagan, but evidently couldn't advise him just to say no to prosecuting the war on drugs.
The government professes to be protecting people against hard drugs. I think that has done an enormous amount of harm. And I have always been in favor of the legalization of drugs, even for those who believe that it is appropriate for some people to interfere with other people for other people's benefit. The fact is that the rendering of drugs illegal does far more harm than it does good. It's the prohibition problem all over again. You have tremendous profits in this industry, and the result of the rendering it illegal is that in addition to the harm which is done to the addicts, there is enormous harm which is done to everybody else in society through the crimes that are encouraged, through the corruption of governmental officials, through the deterioration of the police forces, and so on and so on. It's a terrible thing.
The drug war accounts for most of the state-sanctioned property confiscation around the country. It accounts for the largest prison population in the world per capita and in absolute numbers. That's more than Russia, more than China. It accounts for gangs, unemployment, deterioration of our inner cities, and an increasingly militarized police force. It accounts for the largest and most dangerous cornucopia of bloodthirsty cartels the world has ever seen. And one of the most bizarre sideshows of this misguided and forgotten war can be found in California, where for decades prisons have been illegally sterilizing hundreds of female inmates. It is important because most of the prison population in this country is due to non-violent drug offenders who would otherwise be productive, albeit addicted citizens. But by ending the war on drugs and starting the war on addiction to address demand, you'll prevent your local meddling warden or some interested scientist in preventing you from having babies all over a dub sack. And in our final story today, Brazil's new sport, beheadings. In the United States, sports dominates much of the conversation, especially in football season. But brawls rarely get as bloody as some of the soccer fights around the world. Oftentimes, that's what makes sporting events so popular. Take this one, for instance, in Brazil. As they attempted to polish their image before the 2014 World Cup and the 2016 Summer Olympics, there is nothing like a public decapitation to give your public relations team a big headache. Yeah, that's right. A referee red-carded a player. Typical argument ensued. Ref stabs said player, who dies on the way to the hospital. Fans of the player rushed the field and met out some impromptu justice. According to the Maranhão State Public Safety Department, fans decapitated the referee, then dismembered his body, and if that wasn't the kicker, the angry mob stuck his head on a stake in the middle of the field. And you thought that fantasy football got a little weird. Capturing every quarter of the alternative media, watch AMTV News Monday through Friday. Got a tip or an interesting news clip? Shoot me an email at tophermorrison@amtvmedia.com. Follow me on Twitter at AMTV News and like me on Facebook at The Real Topher Morrison. Find my source material and more videos like these at AMTV Media and greenwave.com. Both are part of the AMTV network. This is AMTV News, the voice of independence.